I think there's a really good message there in what you just said about, you said you really didn't like it.
I didn't. I
Not
didn't.
only were you not good at it, but you also didn't like it. And I think that that's a really good message for people who try to push through, like if they've gotten a leadership role and they're in that role and they just push through, but it's draining to them or they don't really like it, or any role really. It doesn't even
Yeah.
have to be a leadership role. And you start to feel like, I've got to do whatever I can to make this happen because I don't want to fail, when sometimes it might be that you're just not in the right role. It's not that, and you don't have to love every single role that you're in, and it doesn't mean that you failed at it. It just means that maybe you don't love it. Maybe it takes
Yeah.
energy rather than gives you energy. So I love that you said that. The other thing I love, which I'm totally stealing, is that failure is a tool.
Yeah.
Because I've said the same thing about if we could just reframe how we look at failure, we would
Hmm.
be in a much better place and not feel like it's not okay to fail. So I love that you use the word it's a tool, because that really is what it is.
I mean, even in lab, I was the last job that I was just in. We were developing a product, and so as we were developing it, we would mess things up, or the experiment itself wasn't designed the way we thought, or wasn't working the way we thought, and things would happen. And our biggest thing was, oh well, we just learned a new failure mode. We just learned that when XYZ happens, that's what it looks like at the end. And so when we had clients or customers come in, they were like, oh, we don't have any amplification. We could be like, I got to ask this question and this question. I know what happened because we failed that way already. So we now
Wow.
know. And so and honestly, even in the job that I had, part of it was learning what the failure modes were so that we could help our clients, our, customers, be able to figure out what's going on with their experiments. It was part of the
Yes.
job, was figuring out how to break it, how to fail.
I love that failure mode. You're giving me lots of things that I'm going to steal. I love that failure mode. Um, so I know that scientists are constantly experimenting. You've talked about that. How do you view failure differently in a lab versus in a leadership role?
Oh, in a lab, I feel like I said, it's a tool in a way that you almost are trying for it in certain ways. You want to understand the robustness of a product or a process. So you try to break it, you try to make it fail, so that you can understand where its boundaries are. It can also, in some ways, be extended to people, but I don't think that you should try to break people to learn where they can break. That's probably not the best idea. Um, but I feel like failing in leadership, again, so much tracks back to just removing your ego from it. Like if you can recognize that you made a mistake and something failed, or somebody got hurt, or you failed to acknowledge something, I don't know, whatever the case may be. If you can look back and go, I made that mistake. I messed that up. I failed in my role, or the person I'm supposed to be, or the position I'm supposed to have. And you're able to take the accountability for it, then that failure then can be, again, a tool, a learning tool. I made this mistake. Let's learn from this. Either that they have to apologize and get better, or they can go and actually fix the situation itself, whatever the case may be, but acknowledging it. And then, I mean, the only way that you can use it as a tool is if you actually acknowledge it, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not
Yes.
going to exist if you don't say, hey, look, this thing is here.
Yes. Well, I think one of the biggest messages that you're saying here is around ego. It's just
Yeah.
how we manage our ego, and that it's really not about us. And, if we kind of take that focus of failure off of us and really think about it in the bigger picture, that probably helps a great deal. So I want to transition a little bit, Emily, to talk about, one of the things that you were sharing about this woman that you were talking to, that you said, I failed too, is that you obviously created an environment where she can then feel safe enough again to come
Yeah.
back and say, look, I messed up.
Mhm.
How do you create an environment where people feel safe to fail and take risks? Like I know in you all's world, it's like you said, you have to fail. You have to fail in order to get it right. But in an environment where leaders are working with people, like how do we create that environment where people feel safe to fail and take risks?
I think it's really important for leaders to show their vulnerability. Because if the leader can be vulnerable, then so can I. If they've
Yeah.
told me that they messed up, then I don't feel as, I might still be very embarrassed about something I messed up and need to go to my leader to talk about, but I would feel less embarrassed or, whatever the case may be. Some people may delay, some people may not talk to them and let it fester or whatever, because maybe their leader is too critical or, failure, you can't do that, or, don't mess this thing up or the world will explode. I'm not, whatever. Or, whatever they say makes it uncomfortable, then they're not going to want to tell you anything. But if you're like, yeah, no, like, I've grown from my mistakes. Here are some of the mistakes I've made, and just making it more of a, you're just like me sort of vibe, then it's easier to communicate. But there are a lot of leaders that I've met that are, I've never made a mistake before, because they won't take accountability for the things that they actually have done. And then that makes the people that are under them not feel safe to talk about that sort of thing. And then that's when you get a lot of high turnover, or people who don't want to, tell you anything. And then a problem blows up and they're like, why didn't I know about this? And it's like, because nobody wanted to tell you.
Yeah. That vulnerability piece is so important for leaders. There's a, oh gosh, his name is Patrick Lencioni, Patrick Lencioni. He talks a lot about vulnerability. We're a big fan of his. And he talks about how there's a video that talks about how he is saying the leader for vulnerability, leader goes first because it helps build trust. And so that vulnerability helps with so many different things. It helps with connection, it helps with trust, it helps with creating safe environments for psychological safety and all of those things. So I totally agree with you on that. What lessons do you feel science has taught you that business leaders should adopt when it comes to trial and error? Because you all, you have to do trial and error. So what are some of those lessons that you've learned that might help other leaders?
Just being open about things. I've been at companies that change tactics in some manner. Going from, that's not really a good example. Like, just they're changing policies, or they're changing the way that the office will do something, or how they're communicating, or whatever the case may be. But, sometimes when you change things, those things fail.
Yeah.
But when you at least start the conversation of change, I think an important part of it is just to be communicative and, saying that we're changing this thing, we're trying it. And I realize that there may be cases where you don't get the option. You just have to, because that's what the, potentially like the corporate overlords are telling all the leaders that they have to do anyways.
Yeah.
But, being able to be open and then, just saying, we're going to try this thing. Let's see how it goes. Because what you don't want is for people to immediately be combative about a change or about something and trying something new. And so if you're talking through it and being like, this is an experiment, we're going to try this and see if it works. But we can, if it doesn't work, or if you guys are having issues, or if there's something wrong, talk to me about it and tell me, and maybe we can do a different iteration or make some subtle changes, or whatever the case may be. Having the ability to adapt, I think, is incredibly important.
Yes, I love what you said, because my philosophy is, if we try something and it doesn't work, then we just try something else.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing that has really helped me with failure and just accepting it, is that, we're going to try stuff. It's not always going to work out. I already know that.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't, then we've tried it, and then let's just try something else, because something will work. If you keep going, something will work. And it's like you said earlier, it's a learning opportunity. You learn what to do and what not to do.
And then even within the thing that failed, sometimes there's nuggets of gold.
Yes.
Maybe the whole thing didn't work out, but maybe that one part of it, the way that was processed or something, that can be taken out and go, oh, so our next iteration, we learned that this part works. Now let's change the things that are around it. It's just learning.
I love that. Yes. Okay, Emily, last question. I could talk to you about this all day, but last question. If more leaders embraced failure like scientists do, what might change in today's workplace?
Work-life balance,
Oh,
mental health of all of the people, um, at a company working, so much could change. Like if leaders could actually be open and vulnerable and allow failure to happen to some degree, but be able to learn from that failure, you know what I mean? That
yeah,
could absolutely be amazing. And that could change the workforce. I feel like a lot of places that have, high employee satisfaction are companies that may not do things in the orthodox manner. And that's probably because they tried something and maybe sometimes it didn't work or then it did. And when you've learned from what didn't work, you're going to find the thing that works the best. You'll find
yes,
the best solution for something. So I think it would be revolutionary. I think the concept that, failure means that it's dead in the water is ludicrous. Like, it's a tool. Use it as a tool.
yes. That is our message. It is a tool. And Dr. Wiseman, I think it was probably your path not to be an astronaut so that you could talk about failure, because obviously you're very good at what you do. And we appreciate you so much for joining us and talking about your own failures, but also talking about just how important it is and critical to fail in order to get us to where we need to be. Um,
Absolutely.
if anyone just wanted to reach out to you to learn more about failure and how scientists look at failure, how can someone find you?
I'm on LinkedIn. Um, Emily Wiseman in North Carolina, Chapel Hill area. I don't know if that's actually my LinkedIn, but it's the little slash after like for the LinkedIn tag is just Emily M Wiseman.
Okay. All
Um,
right.
yeah,
Excellent. Well, Emily, thank you so very much. I really appreciate you being here and sharing some really good nuggets. I mean, I picked up a few and a few things that I'm actually going to steal myself. I'll be sharing it all over the world, but I will definitely give you credit for it. So that's a wrap today on this edition of What's in the News for Leaders. A huge thanks to Dr. Emily Wiseman for reminding us that every failed experiment is really data, and every setback can fuel smarter, more courageous leadership. If today's discussion sparked an idea or helped you rethink your approach, share the episode with a colleague and definitely leave us some comments. We always want to know what you're thinking. It helps other leaders find what we're doing, find out what we're doing, and hear other conversations that we have on what's in the news. For more resources and upcoming episodes, you can definitely find us on LinkedIn, or you can find me on LinkedIn at Endora Gandy Hinton. Until next time, keep leading the moment and remember the best leaders don't avoid failure, they learn how to run experiments with purpose. Thank you all so much for joining today, and we will see you at another episode of What's in the News.